Is the gold standard really just an antiquated, outdated system that we really shouldn't touch with a barge pole? Or can we, as individual stackers, create our own new gold standard for our own personal wealth to help us protect our money in these uncertain times? Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a very warm welcome to you all joining me for another Precious Metal Ramble. Now today I want to talk about the gold standard and how it's quite an antiquated and outdated system of kind of economic control of governments and currencies. But as private individual stackers, I think there is this really interesting kind of culture that has developed over this last 10, 15 years of stacker kind of culture where we really do think and attribute value to this stuff against currencies. And we've kind of created our own little miniature gold standard. And that sentiment is growing quickly across new stackers and seasoned stackers alike, that the gold and silver that we have will protect us. And what I think is most interesting is that the cultural kind of look at that and, you know, the cultural feelings that we as individuals have doesn't necessarily match up with what governments have and what bigger economies require. And whilst there's a lot of countries around the world accumulating a lot of gold right now and silver, the biggest players in the market right now are still on this kind of fiat currency roller coaster. That's the new gold standard. The US dollar is the new gold standard, or the currencies, the economies, the potential for economies going forward. And of course, nobody knows what is going to happen in the future. And it's really very interesting. So we've got a lot of ground to cover today, and I hope there's something for everybody, whether you're a new or seasoned stacker. So please feel free to comment with your thoughts and opinions down below as we go throughout the video. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. That really does help everything that we do here on our YouTube channel. So a little bit of overview and history first of all. If you know nothing about the gold standard, very quick summary, and just to put in my little disclaimer, I'm not an economic expert or a financial advisor, so this is all my own knowledge and opinion. Please do your own research, make your own decisions. The gold standard, a little brief overview. Basically, it was a system by which countries around the world pegged the value of their currency against gold. So the value of gold was fixed, and you would then have your currencies basically exchanged against that, and it was a way for countries around the world to have exchange rates and trade much more easily. It started around the 1870s, but of course gold and silver have got histories from economies going back thousands of years, and it seemed like the logical mechanism by which to peg those economies in this growing industrial world of the late 1800s, early 1900s. However, with the basically First World War was the thing that really stuck it. It was an exact example of when the gold standard cannot and does not help countries. In time of need, gold standards are restrictive. Countries cannot create more money. They cannot, basically expand their economy to contend with the modern issues of the time that are there. So basically, the gold standard was a restrictive mechanism, and it was great. And that's one of the cultural reasons why the gold standard is so popular in this kind of modern stacker mentality that we have now. You see it a lot, that people are very keen on coming back to the gold standard. And in fact, a lot of people thought that a certain ex-president was going to return the United States to a gold standard. It would have been a complete disaster economically. It would not have happened, and if it had happened before COVID, before the coronavirus hit, then there would have been some proper brown stuff hitting the fan, let me tell you. So it's not really a viable mechanism for an economy going forward in this modern world. That's my opinion. A lot of people think differently. However, it is, I think, still relevant for us culturally to look at, because a lot of people call for this as a way to restrict governments. And a lot of the disconnect, I think, from a gold bug and that bug mentality of being able to stack this stuff, protect your wealth, preserve your wealth, it doesn't necessarily transpose up onto that larger scale for countries and major economies. What's right for an individual isn't necessarily right for a country. And that, I think, is a real big disconnect that a lot of people forget. It is easy for an individual to buy a bunch of gold right now, bury it in your garden, and then dig it up in 30 years' time, and you've preserved your wealth, and you've got that buying power transposed through time. But a government, a country, an economy can't necessarily do that as easily. It restricts what you can do as a country. And that's one of the big kind of foibles of the gold standard. Now, as individual stackers, I think that we have this really interesting opportunity somewhat in this world. This hyper-connected world now. Even 10 years ago, we weren't at the same level that we were now. And I think in the next 10, 15, 20 years' time, we as a species will be connected more instantly than we have ever been before. And I do think that there is this opportunity out there for not just gold, anything, to be quite frank, cryptocurrencies, even other currencies, to basically become essentially the gold standard. International trade and ease of international trade was the reason why gold standards existed in the first place. And they only succeed because the major economies of the world actually pegged their currencies to it. They adopted the gold standard. Now, if we as communities around the world all agree that there is something that has value, like a cryptocurrency, for example, then that essentially becomes a means of international trade and pegging a certain value against your currency. The problem is that we are all in this fluctuating world of fiat currency, and the thing that we all pay our bills with, the pounds, the pennies, the pence, the dollars, they are the things that actually make the world go round. So it's really interesting that we still have this mentality of gold and silver being valuable, but we don't really use it anymore in society. And I think that is fascinating as a sort of evolution of the experiment of the gold standard throughout history. Now, where a lot of people also think a lot of value lies is it's a way to protect against inflation. However, a lot of arguments from history's past is that the gold standard is not really a great way to protect against inflation because it essentially devalues your currency through deflation. So basically your currency cannot expand. Your currency will constantly retract over time as other currencies around the world change. That's the whole mentality. And there's a lot of economic arguments actually that the Great Depression of the 1920s and 1930s was actually deepened and spread further and wider because of the restrictions in place for the gold standard. And it is interesting from that perspective to kind of look at the history of it and what we can learn from this experiment from history. I think it is a fascinating period of time, this sort of golden age, as some have called it. It's really very exciting and very interesting to look at how it's influenced this world that we live in, because ultimately right now, gold is great. It's something that a lot of people put a lot of value in, but I've mentioned countless times before that gold is actually pretty useless when it comes to needing things in an emergency. If your country is suddenly invaded by the Russians, like there could possibly be any minute now by in Ukraine, having this stuff, it's kind of good, but at the same time, if somebody's rushing in, sorry, that's a little bit of a pun. If somebody's coming into your country and, taking away all your food, all of your water, all of your medicines, gold might help you. You might be able to buy your way out of certain things, but a lot of the time, actually, it's just going to get you in more trouble. And yes, what gold will do over a kind of longer period is you can run away, you can go across borders with your gold, take your wealth with you portably. That's much easier to do. But at the same time now, unless you've got really kind of large volumes of gold, it's only going to get you so far. It's very, very difficult to kind of liquidate your entire life into gold or silver, certainly silver, and then just take it away. And we even saw with the sort of coronavirus, when that really hit and the lockdowns happened and economies around the world really started to kind of nosedive, and gold and silver took a hit too, and silver more so than gold, massive hit in fact. It really was this thing where you'd think in an emergency, and a brown stuff hit the fan, the economies, the stocks and share markets around the world were collapsing. Surely gold and silver are going to go up because that's where everybody needs their money. But no, it was that rainy day fund that a lot of these hedge funds had, a lot of these big corporations had, that they then liquidated to make them survive. Because, as I said, fiat currency is what makes the world go round. And that's the nuts and bolts of the story, really. It's a system by which we all can and do look to, survive on money, actual real currency. And whilst gold and silver are potentially this great asset that a lot of people put a lot of value into, it is not necessarily something that will be easy for governments to have. So there is a lot to learn, and a lot of what I've kind of regurgitated here today, I heard in this great podcast on the BBC. It's called In Our Time with Melvin Bragg. Really, really great. I'll put a link to the podcast in the description below. It details a really good overview of the history of the gold standard, its pluses and minuses of what it was great at in that early sort of heyday of the 1870s up to 1914, and then its slow decline over time to a point where it really did need to end. It had to end. Countries and governments around the world really did not get any value out of it anymore, and this new modern world that we are in now has kind of evolved from that. And I do think it's fascinating that we are still, I think, evolving as economies, as sort of gold bugs and stackers as well, and we're in this kind of golden age now of private gold and silver ownership. So there's a lot of really interesting information to learn about this, but I'd love to know any thoughts and opinions that you have about the gold standard, about the return to the gold standard, or whether as individuals we can create our kind of own individual gold standard. What I think is the most interesting point to take away from all of this is that whilst gold and silver have throughout history been valuable, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, what I think will happen is that other things will come along that will also be attributed value. And that includes cryptocurrencies. We've already seen that wave come. The next thing is NFTs, which are even worse than cryptocurrencies in many ways, but still are essentially the same thing. You know, things which don't actually exist but have value. The good thing about this stuff is it still exists. It's here. But where its place will be in the distant future, it's anybody's guess, and I'm not a savant. I don't know where that will be. Who knows? It could be something that we all look back on and think, really? Is that what? It's just a lump of metal. Why is that of any value? What can I do with that in a modern digital age? So we'll see. But if you have enjoyed what I've had to say today, a quick reminder to hit that thumbs up button. That really does help everything that we do here on YouTube. And if you have got any thoughts and comments of your own, then please let me know down in that comment section. Otherwise, that is it from me. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you on the next one. And as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.